everybody. Welcome to Bridges to Community. I'm Erica Labb, Executive Director of Bridges by Epoch in Westford. Welcome to our show. I'm here with my esteemed colleague. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Erica. Sarah Turcotte here. I'm the area liaison for Bridges by Epoch, and so excited to be back in the studio with one another. We're excited today to have our special guest, Darcia Tremblay from Silver Lining Solutions. Really excited to have you on today, Darcia, because you specialize in the Medicaid long-term care application process, which for many families and seniors can be a complicated process. Darcia has over 14 years of experience helping people and families with this process, has won multiple awards and has a successful business, and just excited to pick your brain and get some helpful information out to our audience. So thank you for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you, Sarah and Erica. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah,
happy to have you. So I guess the big question is for a lot of people, like, what is Medicaid? Because people all the time ask us, if I had $1 every time someone said, like, got mixed up between Medicaid and Medicare. So could you just sort of give us a nice overview of what Medicaid is and maybe how it differs from Medicare and other forms of insurance?
Sure. Medicare is actually the federal government program for anyone over 65 to get parts A and B with an option of Part C and D. A and B covers hospital and doctor care. Part C is like a managed care supplemental. And Part D is the pharmaceutical prescription drug plans. So usually by the time people come to us, they already have their Medicare plans in place. The Medicaid, which is what we deal with, is a federal program, but it's administered by the state. And it's for low income, low asset citizens. There is Medicaid for people under 65. We primarily deal with seniors over 65 that are applying for long-term care Medicaid for nursing home coverage or for assistance, medical assistance in the home for them to be able to maintain at home. So the Medicaid application in Massachusetts is called Mass Health. The Mass Health application is 34 pages long. There is a look back of all income, assets, open and closed bank accounts, property, any houses that have been sold within the last 5 years, stocks, bonds, securities, again, real estate, life insurance policies. So we gather that whole 5 years of documents together for our clients and for their families to submit everything to Mass Health on their behalf. So we really become the liaison between the family, Mass Health, and the nursing homes.
That is a mouthful and truly just a lot of layers. And I'm just curious, with your background, how did you, with your background with processing these Medicaid applications, how did you get into this and what makes you want to specialize in this?
I really fell into it. I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, raising my 3 daughters who are now in college. But when my youngest was going into first grade, I decided that I really needed to get back into the workforce, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do. My husband is a firefighter, and he works 24-hour shifts, so I needed something with flexibility that I'd be able to get my kids on and off the bus and get them back and forth to their sportings and activities. And a friend of mine from high school called and she said, I am doing Medicaid applications for residents in nursing homes, and the company I'm working for is looking to hire, and I think you'd be great. I did not know at the time, I did not know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. But I sent my resume on a Monday, they interviewed me on a Tuesday, and they hired me on a Wednesday. They taught me everything I know. Well, not everything I know, but they taught me from the ground up, process documents, how to fill out the application, how to meet with the clients, all of that. And I actually absolutely loved it. It's the challenge of getting all of the documents. And when you get the families approved and when you finally get that approval notice, everyone is just, the nursing homes are happy, the families are relieved. And it's such a sense of pride in accomplishment. So that's really got involved. Those owners, the original owners of the company, they then retired, moved to the Carolinas. The company was bought by 3 elder law attorneys. So I then learned how to do the whole application process the legal way. Not that it was illegal, but through from the lawyer's point of view. But a couple years into that, I realized that I really wanted to own my own business. I had my own ideas of, just wanting to have my own entity. And I had a Mass Health caseworker that said to me, she goes, "You can go do this on your own. You really have a great reputation." So I gave my notice and I started Silver Lining Solutions.
Wow. And just for our listeners that are learning with us today, it is a very daunting process. I mean, you mentioned the 5-year look back, which, you kind of hear a lot. 5 years, they look back 5 years. This is a lot of documentation that you have to pull together and then complete all the 34 pages of forms. It is a big undertaking, and very few families are able to do it without assistance. So Absolutely. This is just, the word solutions really is key, because it is a hard thing to pull together.
Absolutely. And it's not even just, the 5-year look back. You have to get all of those documents pulled together. And I know that's something that Darcia and her team help each and every one of her clients with. Just kind of talking more about this, can you also share a little bit on what the Medicaid long-term care and Medicaid community benefit programs are?
Sure. The long-term care covers nursing home. The Medicare coverage and supplemental insurance does not cover long-term care in a nursing home. So that's the long-term care nursing home piece that needs to be applied for. The Mass Health community programs, there's like 5 or 6 different community programs for seniors still living at home that want to try to age in place for as long as they can. And there is state government assistance through Medicaid to be able to do that. The 5 or 6 different programs are based on all different income. Well, the income amounts vary, and there's senior buy-in, there's common health care, there's the frail elder waiver, there's Mass Health Standard. Each program comes with different benefits according to what the senior at home needs. And so we're able to help with that application process to make sure that what we're submitting and applying for them is what they need to still maintain and live at home.
Absolutely. And that's the great part about, everything you listed there, I'm sure half of the audience listening in doesn't even realize some of the benefits that they can tap into. And with working with yourself or your team, you can really share what options are available that coincide with their planning and their wishes, which I think is fabulous.
I have a Mass Health community specialist on staff. She actually came from a local hospital, and she was formerly a Shine counselor. So she knows all of the programs, how to get people approved, exactly how to explain it to them, because it does get complicated and it is hard to understand the difference between a senior buy-in program to a frail elder waiver program to common health care. So she's able to explain it to the family so that they know exactly what we're applying for and what the benefits will be when we do get the approval to notice in.
And what typically, so someone, ideally, when is someone coming to you to engage in this process? Like, how do they show up to you, and ideally?
90% of the people actually are in a crisis mode. Mom or dad have fallen, they went to the hospital for 3 overnights, and it's not safe for them to go home. And now they are admitted to, a nursing home for rehab. They are not going to be able to go home, and they get handed a 34-page application, and the nursing home will say, you really need to contact Silver Lining Solutions to help you with this application process. So it's really most of them are in a crisis mode. Some families that I've been doing this for 15 years, so my name is out there, and families that I worked with 10 years ago who we might have done mom or dad's, now we have to do an aunt, or we're doing another relative or an in-law relative. So they know that they can call us. We really like to get and start working with families when people are under like $100,000, because we want to make sure that because there's certain spend down items that are allowed for Mass Health within that 5-year look back. to avoid any type of penalty period. So we like to start working with those families right up front to say, okay, this is what you can spend your assets on. This is what is allowable Medicaid spend down items, as opposed to you can't just give $50,000 to your children away, because you love them and you're trying to help them out, because that's going to cause a penalty period. And then we're backtracking, saying, okay, you shouldn't have done that 6 months ago, and now we have to kind of fix the penalty.
Right, but maybe something like funeral expenses.
Yes, that's the we recommend to the families is make sure that the funeral, pre-need funeral contracts are set up for both mom and dad if they're already, if both are still alive. And then they're also allowed to set up, it's a $1,500 burial-only expense account for any incidentals above and beyond the cost of the funeral. So those funds can be used for catering services after the funeral, flowers, opening a grave site, engraving of a stone, and actually even any travel expenses for anyone coming out of state to
wow.
cover for the. So it's just an extra way to protect, $1,500 per applicant for any incidentals.
Which is fantastic that you know all this, because I think a lot of people, even when they're trying to do these applications on their own, don't know those little nuances. Mm-hmm. And so then they're left on Medicaid without funeral expenses already paid. Yeah. And that's important. And that costs a lot of money.
Absolutely. And it's their hard-earned money, and to be able to spend this, ahead of time in meaningful ways and purposeful ways, it makes a big difference. And again, a great reason why you should talk to a professional rather than navigating this on your own. And, going through this process, Darcia, you mentioned the look back and things that, people can, there's a list of expenses that people can, or list of items rather, that people can spend on. But what are some documents when people start this process? What documents are they pulling up and pulling together? What are things that you're looking for to start this process?
We really need, if they're receiving, most of them are receiving Social Security. So if they have the Social Security income benefit letter, that's one of the items that we need. If they're receiving a pension, people don't realize, we actually need the gross monthly pension statement. They'll say, well, the direct deposit's going into the bank account. You can see it in the bank account. But on the flip side of that, if they're getting a pension from, say, John Hancock, we need to see what the gross amount is, or the state needs to see what the gross amount is. If there are any federal or state taxes being taken out of that, is the health insurance being paid for out of the pension? Or is there any small group life insurance policies that are being paid? And then showing what the net deposit is, because with all of those items, there's certain things that we have to do on our end to make sure that it's a smooth transition to get approved for Mass Health or Medicaid. So the income statements are really important for us to get. We are able to get them on our end if someone doesn't have, accessibility to them. A lot of times, because everything is electronic now, the pension companies are not mailing out monthly statements to the families anymore. And they're just expected to set up an online account. But we're able to work with the family and with the pension companies to be able to obtain those income statements. We also request upfront, we'll request the most recent bank account statements. That tells us where their money is, how much they have, what are we looking at for a spend down. And then we have a form, it's called the Mass Health Financial Request Form, that we have either the client, which is the applicant, or the power of attorney sign. With that form, we are able to contact the banks directly to have them print the 5 years of statements that are needed for all open and closed accounts at no cost, because there is a Massachusetts general law that the banks cannot charge for those statements because it is required by this Office of Medicaid.
I'm so glad you shared that last piece in particular, because if this is an emergency mode that people are in and the kids are looking for, because it's often the kids, the adult children looking for to help their parents, and you walk into the house and you're like, where's all your paperwork, right? Because the parents are in crisis, one or both, if are in the hospital, and so being able to have the power of attorney sign something and then you guys do that legwork, because it's a full-time job for quite a little while there, especially in crisis. So that is huge, because the documentation piece is so important. It's like you're going through mounds of paperwork trying to find, a needle in a haystack.
And a lot of people in that generation are very private with their finances. They don't tell their children where their bank, what banks they're using, how much is in their accounts. So it's really eye-opening when they are in crisis mode, and now they're like, I don't even know what bank my parents use.
Right.
How we this out. So we're able to help work with them to get all of those documents together.
Great.
And now this is obviously a process. So when someone starts this process, right, you mentioned people are reaching out to you in crisis, and oftentimes, time is of the essence. So how long does this process typically take? And, is it possible to have delays and not being able to access the coverage and support that you need? Can you share a little bit on that?
Sure. The typical process is 3 to 4 months. Some of our applications we've been able to get successfully approved within 45 days. Some applications that do involve trusts, annuities, income property, things that are more complex and involved can be up to 6 months. What happens is, as soon as we submit an application to Mass Health, the applicant, the client, becomes Medicaid pending. So the nursing home knows that they're not going to get paid for however long this application process takes until we get the approval. So the nursing homes are trusting us to get these cases approved and processed as soon as possible.
And then it's retroactive?
It's retroactive to 90 days to the application date. So applications that my team has actually submitted this week to be date stamped in March of 2023, we can actually reach back to a December 1st, 2022 Medicaid start date for them.
Wow. Okay.
There is a retro date. We don't like to work with retro dates,
sure,
because we're scrambling right now trying to get some people's documents together, because we know that we have to get these in because they either didn't tell the nursing home that they didn't have money, or for whatever reason they fell through the cracks on the nursing home side, or they were just admitted, different reasons. So we do scramble to get everything in so that we can reach back to December. It does not happen very often, but occasionally it does. So when we submit that application, Mass Health takes about 3 weeks to process all of the documents that we submit. My policy, the Silver Lining Solutions policy, is we submit all of the documentation as much as possible up front with that initial application. So with the 5 years of bank statements, we do Excel spreadsheets for all the transactions over $1,000, showing the ins and outs, transfers between bank accounts, because we know that that's what Mass Health is going to want to question, and that will throw up red flags. So if we verify all of that up front, it makes the process much smoother, and then we're able to get the approvals quicker. 3 weeks after we submit the application, Mass Health will come back with a request for additional information based upon anything that we submitted with the application. If they have questions, if they need additional documents, if they need updated bank statements from that point, and at that point, we have 30 days to get everything back to them. That's why it's so crucial for us to be able to submit as much as possible upfront, because when we're in that time crunch of 30 days, if we don't have everything back to Mass Health within 30 days, we're issued a denial notice. We then will file an appeal within 48 hours just to secure that application start date, and then be able to negotiate and work with Mass Health for the next 45 days to resolve the issue.
Okay.
And again, time being of the essence, and not everyone, knows that they might be in this time crunch, and maybe at times by the time they realize it could be too late. And just kind of listening into you, I also know that over the last year, there's been some changes with Medicaid, and people ask, that question a lot. What are the actual changes? Are you able to share a little bit about some of the changes that have affected people recently?
Some of the changes are, Mass Health is not, it's general. It varies. One big change is vehicles. Mass Health used to force applicants, if there was no spouse at home, that they would have to sell their vehicle before they could get approved. Right now, Mass Health is allowing them to keep that vehicle, because what we have found is a lot of times the children are using that car to get to bring mom or dad out for ice cream or to a doctor's appointment or to a family outing. So they're not forcing people to sell their vehicle in order to be approved. They have just changed a regulation that they're no longer allowing pooled trusts. A lot of attorneys like to set up pooled trusts to try to protect assets. But Mass Health has kind of put the kibosh on that. So it seems like every 6 months, regulations really change. It also depends on what caseworker you get, because different caseworkers have different little nuances that they, pick apart.
Sure.
It all just depends on what caseworker you get, what the situation is with the application. After 15 years, I don't think I've seen 2 applications that are exactly the same. Everybody has different income, different assets, different amounts, income property, non-income property. So every application is different. That's the challenge.
It's kind of like our world, living in dementia. Everyone is affected differently and takes a different approach and technique.
It's true. It's true. I want, so kind of touching on that, I had a question. I'm trying to think of, so you talk about like the children, the adult children helping, and they are typically the ones to reach out to you. What about folks that don't have really anyone in their life that either they trust to reach out to you, or that is able to, like, if they were, say they're in, in a crisis, in the hospital, and they're like, oh, we want to discharge you to a nursing home, or can they reach out to you if they have no assistance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of times, like the nursing homes, we call them self-applicants. When they're, competent and they're able to handle themselves, answer the questions, sign for themselves, the nursing homes will let us know on our referral sheet, Bob Smith is a self-applicant. He's in room 203. And we will go, me or my staff will go meet with Bob directly, meet with that client directly, sit bedside with him, fill out the application, have them sign all of the application documents, sign the release form so that we're able to go get bank statements and things like that, and all of the verifications that are needed. So we are able to work directly with those clients one-on-one.
Okay.
If they're not able to come to us, we're in the nursing homes every week. Between me and my 4 caseworkers, we all just kind of rotate around of who's going where. And if one of them is going to a Beaumont and somebody else has a client there, they work really well together. We all work really well as a team to say, I have a client on the 3rd floor. Can you go meet with that one or pick something up? So we do meet with those clients one-on-one to help them. If we do come across a situation where we don't think that the person that we're meeting with, the client, is actually competent and they don't have anyone else, we will let the nursing homes know right away that they're going to have to file for conservatorship, just because we're not going to be able to get what we need from them.
Right.
Absolutely. Another thing that we see are spousal situations where one spouse might need this type of support, but the other spouse still is living at home and concerned about, needing assets for their future plans and care. Can you touch a little bit on this and how you're supporting those situations?
That's probably one of the number one questions that we get. My husband's going into the nursing home. Am I going to lose my house? Am I going to lose all my money? Am I going to have to pay? Am I going to lose his income to pay my bills? The answer is no. When a spouse is living still at home and one spouse is going into the nursing home, we are able to transfer, through an attorney, we transfer the deed to the community spouse into the community spouse's name so that that house is protected. As of right now, the state is not putting liens on that house because there is a spouse still living there. Bank account information, any assets, a spouse living at home can be up to $148,600. The applicant spouse has to be under $2,000. So we actually transfer all of the assets, bank accounts. We have the spouse at home set up their own individual bank account. They can have a child on it as a co-signer or as a joint owner of a bank account. All the assets get moved over to them. If that spouse is still over the $148,000, it's considered part of a spend down. Again, we make sure that they have the prepaid funeral set up for both of them, the burial only expense account set up for them. Does the spouse at home, I always say does she need a new car? Does she need any appliances? Does the house need any repairs? Just to make sure that that's a fully safe environment for her as part of that spend down. Before the other option is to set up a spousal annuity. It's called a SPIA annuity. It's a single premium immediate annuity. So we take any excess assets, create an annuity, or purchase an annuity for the spouse at home, and then that becomes an additional monthly income stream for them to still be able to pay for their expenses and pay for their personal needs at home.
Who's your client, Darcia? Like, how do you get paid? How does Silver Lining Solutions get paid? Is the family your client or the nursing home? How does that work?
The applicant is technically our client.
Okay.
So our fee is paid from the spend down amount that the client would have. So
that's considered an okay expense.
It's an allowable spend down expense. Our fees are based upon whether it's a standard case or a complex case.
Complex, yeah. That makes sense. That's great. It can be part of that. It's allowable.
Yeah, it is allowable. And the fee just depends upon, it's a one-time flat fee, and it all just depends upon the complexity of the case. When somebody calls us, or if we're doing an initial screening, we have specific questions that we ask to determine, how much the fee will be, and we let them know that right up front.
Oh, that's great. And it's a flat fee, so they don't have to worry that halfway through it changes. That's fantastic.
Cost. We generally do not charge additional fees if we have to file an appeal, because usually the appeals are based upon documents that are missing from the nursing home or something that Mass Health we had sent into them, but they missed it on their end, so it's just a negotiation. So we generally do not charge additional fees for an appeal.
Great.
It's amazing. And, this is obviously a process you help families through every day. And once you have helped someone, you get them approved, things are going well. Are families coming back for support after this process takes place? Are you supporting folks after this?
A lot of times they will call, within the first couple of weeks after approval. They'll have questions because the applicant that we just got approved for Mass Health, they will have to pay a good portion of their income. It's called a patient paid liability amount to the nursing home, and then Mass Health supplements the difference. That's kind of a misconception that Mass Health pays for everything. They don't pay for the full amount. Everyone has different income amounts, so everyone is expected to pay what they can afford according to the Mass Health calculation. So they do have questions on that. As after the approval, a year after approval, Mass Health will send out an annual eligibility review notice that they want updated income information and updated bank account information just to prove that applicant is still under the $2,000. So the families will call us back a year or so later to say, can you help us with this annual eligibility review? So we charge a minimal fee to be able to do those documents for them, but we're always here for any additional that they may have, after approval. We don't just drop them. We keep our case files in our storage unit, lock storage, for 2 years after approval.
And what's the best way to find you for all of our listeners?
The best way to find us is through our website. It is www.silverliningsolutions.com.
Fantastic.
That is great. Well, we cannot thank you enough, Darcia. Is there anything else that we didn't cover today that you wanted to share with the audience?
I think we covered quite a bit. We also do offer one-on-one asset Medicaid planning for assets and just looking at individual cases before they actually are ready to submit an application. So even if it's 6 months to a year before they're going to need Mass Health, we're able to sit with them and say, okay, you need to consolidate accounts, make sure you set up your prepaid funeral. So we're able to meet with people one-on-one to do that. And then the fee that we charge for that gets actually applied when they go to do the application. So they can contact us through the website. The office phone number is 978-887-1100. We are based in Topsfield, Massachusetts. We do cover the entire state of Massachusetts. We also do Maine care applications, New Hampshire applications. And this past week, we also picked up a new nursing home in Rhode Island. So we are doing Rhode Island as well. So we're happy to help wherever people need us.
Wow, fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much yet again, Darcia, and certainly any families, caregivers that could benefit from even just giving a call and having a consultation, it's definitely worthwhile. So reach out to Darcia and her team with your questions and certainly take time to plan. It's truly a gift to you and your family.
It's true.
Thank you again, and thank you all for joining us on Bridges to Community podcast.
And thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Erica. Until the next time.
See you then.
Take care.
Thank you.